Welcome to the Proceedings podcast. I'm Bill Hamblet, the editor-in-chief of Proceedings at the U.S. Naval Institute. Today is Monday, August 21st, 2023. Good to have you on board, everybody. August is Coast Guard month for Proceedings, and we have a great Coast Guard guest today. But first, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by the members of the Naval Institute. Since 1873, 150 years now, the members of the Institute have been the foundation for everything we do. From USNI News to events and conferences, the Naval Institute Press publishing books, the Proceedings and Naval History team, everything we do is underwritten and supported by the members of the Naval Institute. If you enjoy the show, ring the bell, subscribe, recommend us to your friends, and become a member today at usni.org/join. Okay, so joining me today from Alameda, California is Vice Admiral Andrew Tiongson, U.S. Coast Guard. He is the commander, U.S. Coast Guard Pacific Area and Commander Defense Force West. Admiral Tiongson, great to have you on the show.
Bill, thank you for having me with you today. This is a great opportunity for us to tell our story, and we really appreciate it out here in PAC area.
Well, sir, I'm going to go a little bit ad lib here because as we were bringing you into the link here, you mentioned a couple big things, happening right now. So all Americans are familiar with the story about the wildfires on Maui and Lahaina. Coast Guard's been contributing to the effort there. And then also, Tropical Storm Hillary was kind of slamming the West Coast and this over the weekend and today. So just real quick, what is your team doing for both of those events and maybe a couple other things that are happening on your radar scope today?
Yeah, Bill, as you can imagine, the horrific things that were happening with the Maui wildfires in Lahaina. There's a great testimonial that was put out there by a survivor. This individual was right in the middle of downtown where he lived, woke up to these wildfires, ended up running towards the sea, and along the way picked up a friend. And they, now imagine that. So you go into the sea. This is a time when the waters are stored up pretty badly because of some good winds that are out there. And then all the other things like smoke, debris in the water. It is not going out into the beach and just going for a little dip. These people went out there. He says his friend was somewhat in shock, and he's holding his hand. And somehow he ends up on the tip of the jetty getting beaten by heavy seas. And the whole time dodging vessels, dodging like sailboats and power-driven vessels with mooring lines that burnt away. They're on fire and they're heading out. They're getting pulled out by the current and things like that. He tells this story, and then all of a sudden, what does he see? He sees a big bright light, and that's a rescue boat from our station in Maui that's out there. And eventually picks up a couple first. And he says that the man with that couple was so burnt. He refers to him as 50% burnt. And then certainly he's there with his friend. His friend's kind of in a shock mode. And the Coast Guard folks from that station go ahead and recover all four of them. But they were out and about doing that basically all day. We had another couple of vessels that were there to assist as well, trying to pick up as many people as we could that fled those horrific fires going into the water.
Well, I heard it was like 70, 80 mile an hour winds. Was that about right?
Yeah, exactly. So you can imagine that it's not, you're not just good. It's not like you're going wading in the water.
Right.
You're in some seas. Those types of things are what these folks at our station did. As well as some other vessels. Then we had some aircraft flying to get eyes on to see how bad the damage was, how extensive it was. But here I'm sure the folks at Station Maui, if we called them heroes, they wouldn't accept that. They would have loved to have done more. But I can assure you and the public that they did as much as they could to pull out as many people as possible from the water and the ocean that day. All of them avoiding it.
Sir,
Go ahead.
How far is Station Maui from Lahaina?
It's relatively close. It's not that far.
But not in downtown though. It's a little bit.
a
little
little bit
removed
off.
from the fire. Yeah.
Absolutely, and things were fine there. As always the case. Well, I say always, but many times the case with Coast Guard women and men. We typically become responders, but yet at the same time, we're in those areas that are being tragically hit, whether it's by a fire, a hurricane, those types of things. And speaking about hurricanes, Southern California right now, it's downgraded. But this is Hillary, was a hurricane at one point, and I can tell you that your Coast Guard did a lot to forward position aircraft in rescue boats, as well as large cutters, to make sure that we were ready for any type of response that might have happened because of that at one point Hurricane Hillary. Now downgraded, but still we're on the watch. We're working with the state's emergency response teams to see what happens in case a case of massive flooding within the region. So we're poised and ready to respond. But that's what your Coast Guard does in a lot of these things. We make sure we're ready, as our motto goes, Semper Paratus, always ready. And that's what we did for that particular event. But we still have people wired in tightly with the State Office of Emergency Systems.
Got it. Well, thanks for the update on those two sort of ongoing situations, sir. I do want to highlight a couple things from your bio for our audience, because a lot of our folks are, Navy, Marine Corps background, or just, never served Coast Guard. And it's always interesting to me as a Navy guy to hear the bios and the career path of somebody who is in the Coast Guard. So you took over as the commanding officer, or the commanding commander of Coast Guard Pacific area a year ago, July 2022. You serve as the operational commander for all Coast Guard missions westward from the Rocky Mountains, across the Indo-Pacific, the Arctic and the Antarctic regions, all the way to the eastern coast of Africa. So that's an impressive span of control, I got to say. Like, that's more than half the globe. You also serve as Commander Defense Force West. We'll get to that a little bit later, which provides Coast Guard operational support to DoD and combatant commanders. You previously served as the Director of Operations, U.S. Southern Command, so down in Miami, looking out at the entire, Latin America region. Before that, you served as Commander First Coast Guard District, headquartered up in Boston. You're a career cutterman with sea time on 5 Coast Guard cutters and 1 Navy ship. You commanded 3 cutters. You're a 1989 graduate of the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, 2 master's degrees from George Washington University, and 2 master's degrees from MIT. I just got to ask, sir, where's the PhD? I mean, when are you going to get serious about education?
That's a tricky question. I'm pretty happy where I am with education, but I can tell you one thing: this is a constant journey of learning, and I'm definitely in it, and I'm all about trying to learn more each and every day, and each and every engagement that I have.
Well, what I took away from that is that, a lot of us go to school for a year or two and we get 1 master's degree. I suspect that you got there to both of those schools, and they weren't keeping you quite busy enough, so you doubled up and got 2 master's degrees in the time that the Coast Guard sent you to those schools. So bravo for that. And maybe the PhD comes after you finish your time in the Coast Guard. So pretty impressive stuff. So to start off, just tell us a bit, aside from the Maui and the, Hurricane Hillary stuff, tell us about the area of responsibility and some things that are going on a continuous basis in the Coast Guard Pacific area. You've got 6 or 7 continents, 71 countries. I mean, this is massive, massive area of responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And just add something. So 1 degree from MIT, conferred by both the Sloan School of Business and the School of Engineering. So it was combined.
Okay, got it. Looked like 2 from 2 separate schools. No,
yeah.
But fantastic. MIT. I'll never go there other than a guest, sir.
No. So thank you for the question. I love how you defined the area of responsibility: 74 million square miles, 71 nations. I always talk about it in terms of polar bears to penguins, and then from Hollywood to Bollywood and a little bit more. So people seem to resonate and keep that in mind as they move forward.
Hollywood to Bollywood. I like it.
Hollywood to Bali, and a little more.
Yeah,
So there's
right.
a little more after that. And it sounds like there's a lot of international things that happen there, Bill. But I have first and foremost homeland security responsibilities as well that we have to ensure that we take care of. So certainly with this type of vast area of responsibility, uh, it really requires a campaigning approach from us. So we took some time. We put together our PAC area campaign plan that has a strategic end state in it. And frankly, the strategic end state is a free, open, connected, prosperous, secure, and resilient maritime domain throughout our area of responsibility. And our main goal, we have other goals that are in there, but our real main goal is to become a trusted partner. And a trusted partner could be with a partner nation that's out there in the Western Pacific, or could be a state emergency response organization within the United States. A trusted partner means everywhere, internal and externally for us here. And it's certainly, as we look towards trying to achieve that strategic end state, we have priorities that are set up, or what we would refer to as lines of effort. It's prepare a ready workforce, generate combined effects. That's all about partnerships. We're in the Coast Guard. We don't have vast amount of resources. We need to have partnerships to ensure that we can get our jobs done and make sure that we can meet the nation's strategic goals. And then the third line of effort for us is to uphold governance. And I'm sure that you know a lot about our law enforcement missions that we do have. I would say that all of these are challenging, and we try to get after these each and every day. But I can tell you that I'm excited to continue to get after these priorities and move the dials with our partners as we go after that strategic end state that we had. So in a roundabout way, I think I've answered your question here. I've put out what our priorities are, and we are doing tons of operations, activities, and investments to get after each one of those lines of efforts that I just spoke about.
Got it. Sir, folks reading the August issue of Proceedings will know that the Coast Guard's got 11 separate missions. So you talked about 3 lines of effort in your strategic plan, but I'm guessing so many of those sort of cross-cut the various missions that the Coast Guard's got, right? I mean, so some of the more obvious ones are things like port security and counter drug and counter immigration, or illegal immigration, and IUU fishing, the illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing. So a lot of different statutory missions that the Coast Guard's got, and I hear you partner with a number of different, international partners, other parts of the U.S. government, state and local law enforcement, et cetera. Just what are some of the most challenging aspects of your job, or the job of the, Coast Guard Pacific area?
Yeah, I think go into your preamble first, if I could just have a moment to describe my thoughts on what you just said.
Sure.
So my thoughts are our value proposition to the American public and our partner nations is maritime governance. And when I say maritime governance, I'm talking about our unique combination of missions and authorities. So us as an armed service, a law enforcement agency, regulatory agency, part of the intel community, a humanitarian service. You mentioned all of those things. So that includes all of our missions, and they are cross-cutting. So search and rescue to law enforcement. We just mentioned humanitarian assistance, disaster response, out to marine environmental response, and marine inspection, and defense readiness. All of these things are captured underneath those things. If we don't do that well at home, nobody wants a poor brand of anything. If our value proposition or our brand is maritime governance, we have to do it the best here at home. And what I have seen in various nations that I have visited is that people see how well we do that here in the United States for the American public, that they want to emulate that. And that's what makes us global in nature, and that's what pulls us to all the different places. You asked about the challenges. We are in high global demand, and we have few resources to go around. And I need to maintain our brand or our value proposition here at home. So I would like to get out as much as possible to all of these nations that want to partner with us, but I can only do that in a certain episodic events. Very hard to do that with persistent presence. Although we do have persistent presence in the Pacific, without any doubt, to meet all of our partners where they are with what they want, that means that I have to be the best at partnering with other agencies, just like you said, and other nations to help provide that value proposition of maritime governance. And that is challenging because other nations are also going through these types of things with scarce resources.
Yeah, sir. Picking up on a couple of things there. Proceedings readers who read we have a lot of content on the Coast Guard. Are very aware of the fact that the Coast Guard is forward deployed. That there's a huge combatant commander demand, out in the Indo-Pacific for Coast Guard presence, right? Because, you see things like, I think over the last couple of years, Bertolf, one of the national security cutters out there in the, making a Taiwan Straits transit, sometimes operating on its own, sometimes operating with Navy ships. There's a lot mentioned about the fact that the U.S. Coast Guard is a lot more like many of the regional navies than the U.S. Navy is. And so your forces, in many cases, present a better partner or a more analogous partner, I guess, than a U.S. Navy destroyer pulling in, right? A Coast Guard cutter is more similar to the types of capabilities that they've got in their regional navies. And because of that, as you said, the demand signal for you and for your forces is huge overseas, but you got to do well what you do for the United States back home, first. The Homeland Security mission is first and foremost, and then extending that out, I'm hearing, out to all the way to Eastern Africa, is something that you can do, but only if you can take care of, the home waters and our EEZ and our forces, our people, to the extent that you need to. But yeah, not enough resources. I can definitely echo that. And that's in a lot of the Coast Guard writing that's in the pages of proceedings, just the huge demand signal, and not enough, supply to meet that demand. Right. So that gets, that takes us to the next question I have, which is, decisions that Congress and the president and the Coast Guard, headquarters are making today or will make today, this year, next year, are going to impact the future of the Indo-Pacific. So what needs to happen now to ensure that the Coast Guard is ready for the challenges that are going to face you in 2030 and in 2040?
Yes, that's a great question, and I appreciate that question. And I don't want to make it sound like we're not getting help from the administration or Congress. I believe we are. So, for example, let me put resources in a couple of different buckets. I'll use 3 buckets, for example. In the FY23 budget, the administration and Congress said, yes, there is a high demand signal for the Coast Guard, and we have to do something about that. What they did was they funded a vessel, the refurbishing of a vessel and a crew that's going to come out here. And this is going to be what we're calling an Indo-Pacific support cutter. It's also known as the cutter Harriet Lane. We expect to get that before the end of this calendar year. And it is going to operate in the region, working closely with partners. It will do some operations like IUU Fish in search and rescue, but its main purpose will be to go from island to different country to provide training on how we do our things. And hopefully while we do that, we'll learn from our partners as well. So look at it in terms of, I said training, but maybe it's more subject matter expert exchanges with different nations throughout. I said persistent presence. That's one of our pieces of persistent presence that's there. In addition to that, Congress went ahead and they funded and began the creation of a Center of Excellence for IUU Fish, as well as a Center of Excellence for Marine Environmental Response. We're going to combine those two. It'll be a regional activity center. We're going to have that in Hawaii. We plan to open up here, ribbon cutting coming within the next few months.
Wow.
And then we're going to be working very closely with all of the partner nations, bringing them in for subject matter expert exchanges, and also providing experts to their nation, as well as ashore for maybe subject matter expert exchange / training type of things, but also on vessels to go ahead and show how we do our business, how our brand is strong. So that happened all in fiscal year 23.
And sir, that Center of Excellence, I understand, is Pearl Harbor, Ford Island. That's where it's going to go.
I think that's what we're looking at right now. I don't want to be too specific, but
Okay.
we're trying to work with NOAA on a place for it to reside. I think we're in a good place right now. So we're still pushing forward, and that's where it is essentially. What you said.
And can I ask you a question about the Harriet Lane? You mentioned a ship being refurbished as Coast Guard cutter Harriet Lane. What class of ship is that, or what kind of ship is that?
It's a medium endurance cutter. It's a 270-foot vessel.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
So we're looking forward to that. And in this year's budget, the House, at least in the House mark, there are 4 additional fast response cutters that have been labeled for this region. So we're hopeful, but we know that it goes through a process.
Yep.
So it's in the House mark only right now. But those would be 3 additional fast response cutters to Guam and 1 additional one to Hawaii. So again, persistent presence. We already have fast response cutters in the region. These would be in addition to those, and that can only help us get after things. And I would say that our dealings with the National Security Council, National Security Advisor, as well as OMB, have been very fruitful, and we continue to move forward for those out-year budgets in trying to get all of the assets required to maintain that persistent presence within the Indo-Pacific.
Got it. So it sounds like both the White House, the administration, and Congress see the need for a larger Coast Guard and are working hard to get you more resources.
Absolutely. Now, I'm an operator, Bill, and as you know, all operators want stuff yesterday.
Right.
But also, we have a government that has to go through a process because there are a lot of needs throughout the entire United States. So right now, we're in that process. But as I mentioned just previously, we have won along the way.
Yeah, that's great.
Hopefully, we will continue to win.
So you just mentioned, sir, you're an operator, right? As Coast Guard Pacific Area Commander, I want to just ask: are you also responsible for readiness, or are there readiness commands that provide you the ready forces to operate? Because in the Navy, it's pretty bifurcated, but in the Coast Guard, my sense is it's not so bifurcated, right?
Well, I would offer you that we do have a deputy commandant for mission support that ensures readiness of our vessels, of our infrastructure, all of those things. But with my hat on, I am also a force provider.
Got it.
As well as a direct operator. So as a force provider, I have to ensure that the vessels that I'm providing to places like the 7th Fleet are ready to operate. So is readiness part of my job description? This operator would tell you absolutely. Absolutely.
Got it. All right, sir. Thank you. I want to jump ahead a little bit to Commander Defense Force West. So that's you're dual hatted. So you're Coast Guard Pacific Area Commander and Commander Defense Force West. And I think a lot of our listeners are probably less aware of the Coast Guard, those dual hatted positions under which is it's supporting to local, state law enforcement and DOD, correct? So what responsibilities do you have with that hat?
With that hat on, first, it would come under a construct if there was a maritime homeland defense mission declared. As soon as that's declared, as many of your viewers would know, you're in the world of the Joint Force Maritime component and that component commander. I fall in underneath that component commander, and my job is to provide those ready resources when asked to go wherever and conduct whatever tactical level missions that are out there. So that is what that other hat is. It's very interesting because I mentioned myself earlier as a force provider. This is an exact example. So at one point I'll be the I would be the that Defense Forces commander asked to have vessels and conduct these types of missions. I would go and talk to myself about PAC area vessels, ensure the readiness of those vessels, take them, put them in the Joint Force Maritime component organization, and run them in support of those operations. Hope that makes sense.
No, it does. I just want to ask a little bit more for my own clarity, but I'm guessing that there might be a, let's say it was a terrorist threat to San Diego, for example, and if NORTHCOM was the combatant commander for Homeland Defense, right? And if Third Fleet maybe would be the GIFMIC in San Diego, and then you would be supporting Third Fleet as the GIFMIC in that scenario. Did I get that roughly correct?
Yeah, I think I'd have to push the pubs to make sure, but I think it would end up being Nav North. Nav North is also wearing the Fleet Forces hat. So I think you got that as a GIFMIC commander.
Got it.
And then I'm following underneath that to provide whatever that security, that tactical level mission is to ensure that terrorist attack doesn't happen in one of those ports, without a doubt.
All right, so you're way smarter on it than I am, because I was forgetting Nav North, that Fleet Forces Command. You're right. He's Nav North under NORTHCOM, and then you would fall in, and your forces would support in that way. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think Third Fleet and I would be partners in that scenario that you had pointed out. Got it.
All right. You mentioned a minute ago IUU fishing, illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing. We had former Commandant Admiral Schultz on the show a couple of years ago when he rolled out the IUU fishing strategy or counter strategy. And that was a great conversation. This is a complex global challenge. And I just want to ask, what role does the Coast Guard and particularly for you, Pacific Area Commander, play in that? How's it going? What are some things that are happening in the IUU fishing world?
Well, we conduct IUU fisheries missions throughout the area of responsibility. So we're doing that day in and day out. In fact, we have an FR fast response cutter that's doing that right now in Oceania, or the Blue Pacific, if you will. And here's the interesting thing, and I think it's worthy to say this, is IUU fish, we are not after a specific target or a specific nation. When it comes to IUU fish, we are after the illicit activity. So it could be anyone. And I would tell you that right now in current operations, we just, last night we had 4 boardings against Japanese vessels that were operating in other countries' EEZs. Turned out that there were no violations according to the setup that with the Regional Fisheries Management Organization. But still, again, it illustrates the fact that we're not after a specific nation. We're always after the illicit activity. This is upholding the maritime rule of governance, the international order, if you will, those rules in laws that we hope everyone follows throughout the world. So providing great governance like that begets great governance everywhere. And that's what we do. So we're doing that there right now. I would say we do that often up in the Bering Sea, right at the maritime boundary line. And this sometimes shocks folks, but we coordinate things with the Russian border guard. In fact, we have communications with them today, even while you have Ukraine going on, because we have similar interests there in that region. They want to contact us if they have a vessel, a U.S. vessel that's in their waters, for us to go ahead and take a response effort for that. We want to notify them if we have Russian vessels in our waters taking away our resources. And certainly if there's a search and rescue case on either side, we want to ensure that our fishermen are safe. So we have like interest when we do that. We do that up in the Bering. We do that in Oceania or the Blue Pacific. We do that in the Western Pacific as well, where we work with our partner nations. You asked, how's it going?
Yeah.
We had been a lead in IUU Fish. We continue to be a leader in the IUU Fish realm. I would say globally, as the examples I gave within the area of responsibility I'm responsible for. But how is it going? I judge that by how have our bilaterals with different countries evolved. And right now we have up to 13 of these with our partner nations that enable us to go ahead and conduct IUU fisheries on their behalf. In fact, we've even gone further. Usually that takes a shipwrighter from another country to come on board one of our vessels and ensure that we're following their rules and regulations. We have one that's called an enhanced shipwrighter regime that just enables us not to go in, pick up a shipwrighter from another nation, come back out, conduct operations, but allows us to conduct operations and just voice call them that we're doing that in support of them. And in my mind, that's what a trusted partner is. There's another nation out there, this is FSM, Various States of Micronesia, that enables us to go ahead and enforce the fisheries on their behalf for their resources by just telling them we're doing that. That's a trusted partner, and that's what we want to be to everybody. And we're working on 2 more of those enhanced type of ship rider agreements right now. So I would say it's going pretty good.
Yeah. So if a U.S. Coast Guard cutter can operate within the EEZ of the Federated States of Micronesia and do fisheries protection, IUU Fisheries Protection, and you don't have to have one of their nationals on board. You can actually just, if you see something happening that's illegal in their EEZ, you can stop it, but with a voice call to their government. Did I understand that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
That's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. And that is moving the dial forward and being a trusted partner.
Yeah. And I know, sir, that U.S. Navy ships can participate in that program. And that's when, back to you mentioned earlier on that the Coast Guard brings law enforcement authorities that the Navy doesn't have, but you'll send a Coast Guard team on a Navy ship that can then go do IUU fishing patrols in Oceania or other places and help enforce those laws with the authorities of the Coast Guard people that are on board. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. And that is a great program as well. And that's what I was referring to earlier when I say we need to partner with everybody because we have scarce resources. It's amazing the types of things we can do with our unique mission sets, our expertise, and the authorities we have with just a small group of people. And what you're talking about, those law enforcement detachments that go on Navy ships and conduct IUU fish throughout the Pacific. And that is the strength of working together and campaigning.
Got it. Sir, a follow-on question to that, the LEDETs, the law enforcement detachments that go out to other ships, particularly to the Navy ships, how stretched are they? Like, is there a huge demand for that? And are you scheduling those folks out, months in advance? Is this, I'm guessing it's a big thing, but I don't know how that works. I've never had any visibility on how that works. So just talk about that for a minute, if you would.
We do schedule them out in advance. We do that in a prioritized fashion. I can tell you that in my mind, working to counter IUUF is at the top of that prioritization. So we do provide those teams, and so far we've been able to meet as many as a demand signal would require. So in other words, if there's a Navy ship, they want them, we will try our hardest to get them on board that Navy ship. Or in other cases, it may be, I have a team. Do you have a Navy ship that we can use to put this team on there? And that's how that process has been working. It's been working out very well. Our deployed specialized forces is yet another type of team that we're able to utilize in conducting a lot of the missions that we have in the Indo-Pacific as well. Again, small teams, adaptive force packages, doing great things.
And do those leadettes also go on other nations' Coast Guard or Navy ships as well?
We haven't done that in this region just yet, but I can tell you that right now we're running North Pacific Guard. North Pacific Guard is with the Canadians. For the first time, the Canadians have provided a surface asset. They went ahead and they leased an asset. I think the name of the asset is called Atlantic Condor. What we've done there, and this is an IUU Fisheries type of operation, is we provided them law enforcement detachment experts on board that vessel. And they're working on that vessel to get after this. I think they've conducted at least 4 boardings right now. That has just started up this operation. We are so grateful that our Canadian partners have come with a surface asset. We provide, in addition to the law enforcement detachment team, we're providing intelligence that we have, as well as maritime patrol aircraft. That's a great example of exactly what you just asked.
So the Canadian Coast Guard is leasing a commercial vessel, and then you've got a leadet that's integrating with that team to do the IUU fishing patrol. Well, that's talk about a pickup team just doing what you got to do to get the mission done.
Right on. Back to your other question, how's that going? The IUU Fish, how's that going? With these examples, I'm telling you that it is progressing, and everybody understands the importance of countering IUU Fish. And we are getting after it as a team, an international flavored team.
That's great. Well, sir, can you back to readiness for a second? Because you said you're responsible out there for readiness, and you got lion's share, I'm guessing, of the Coast Guard assets nationwide. What are you hearing from the deck plates in terms of recruiting and retention, and just keeping ships ready to go to sea, and the morale of the team out there? What could you say to our listeners or to young Coast Guardsmen about about readiness and about what things are going to look like in the next couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely, Bill. Recruiting is an issue for us in the Coast Guard. It's for us within all of our armed services.
It is, right.
We are wrestling with recruiting as it goes. In my particular case, I can tell you that every day I'm balancing different risks. And when I say different risks, I look in terms of risk to force, risk to mission, risk of inaction, risk of unintended escalation, and that brand that we talked about earlier, that risk to brand. I'm balancing all 5 of these each and every day. And what I've prioritized with the help of our headquarters is to prioritize putting our new recruits to the pointiest end of the spear. And for many of us, that means our cutter fleet. So a lot of our folks that are coming out of boot camp end up right to cutters. We balance that risk where they would have been somewhere else. We go ahead and try to balance that risk as best we can. That being said, we have been talking and working with the administration. The administration has heard us. We've gotten a lot of support in terms of recruiting, and I'm excited about our new efforts in recruiting. So we have a new brand that's gone out in recruiting. We're trying to do new and different things. So, for example, for the first time in our history, we're taking lateral entries into the Coast Guard. If you were a paramedic on the outside, well, do you have to go through all of the boot camp and all of the schooling that's there? Well, maybe you go through an abridged type of boot camp. Maybe you come to the schoolhouse where we teach our docs. Maybe at that point, we go ahead and assess all of the knowledge you have, and we find out, hey, instead of being there for, I don't know how long it is, but say it's 2 months or 3 months, you can do it in 3 weeks. And we have had people that have done that throughout our service already. So that's exciting. That's different. That's getting after this problem and trying to get people to where we need them most. We've also looked at doing that with our cooks. So same thing. If you were a cook on the outside and you wanted to come into the Coast Guard, well, here's a lateral entryway for you to come into the Coast Guard and get to that petty officer level much faster than we had done in the past. So all of these types of unique approaches are really exciting for me. And as the son of a person, a man who said, "Hey, I'm in the Philippine Army right now. I want to go to the United States," who was able to come into the Coast Guard, the United States Coast Guard, as a steward essentially, and then become a naturalized citizen of our country, and then eventually become a petty officer and then a senior chief petty officer in our United States Coast Guard. That makes me very proud that we're looking at different ways to get after our recruiting issues.
That's a great story, sir. Thank you. Well, we are about out of time, so I'll give you a chance for saved rounds or a parting shot.
No, I would say that I am excited about our region here. We've got a lot going on. We have the Coast Guard Cartagena right now that's up in the Arctic, going ahead to advance Arctic science through research, education, and international collaboration. They're doing a trans-Arctic trip. That's exciting for me. And that is also just yet another example of how we collaborate with all of these countries to go ahead and improve governance everywhere. And in this case, specifically, this is a science mission. But just that because they're up there, that's doing great things. None of this happens, Bill, without a great team in the Coast Guard. I think you know this. You've seen us for a while. We have extraordinary women and men that want to make a difference in this world each and every day. They join our service and they do exactly that. And that makes me proud to be part of an organization where the women and men care about our nation, our nation's goals, and certainly their fellow human beings. And that's what I see each and every day in all of the various units that I visit. I see people who are eager to get after things and to make a difference. Can't do it without them. Thanks.
Awesome. All right, sir. Thank you. Well, my guest today has been Vice Admiral Andrew Tiongson, U.S. Coast Guard. He's the Commander of Coast Guard Pacific Area and Commander of Defense Force West. Thank you for your time, sir. This episode was brought to you by the members of the Naval Institute. For 150 years, our members have fostered the free and open debate that has moved the sea services forward. To become a member, go to usni.org/join. If you're already a member, invite a shipmate or a friend to join. And until next week, remember, victory begins at the Naval Institute.